Hi there, and welcome to the third session of our telephone etiquette program. Here we are going to highlight some more points about etiquette on the telephone, and we will have some more etiquette tips for you. And you'll find out exactly what is it that makes callers angry. What are the things that callers really don't like about the way you behave on the telephone and the service that you give them. All of these things will go to helping you become much more professional in the way you conduct your business on the phone. So let's take a look at some more things about telephone etiquette. Always proceed cautiously. This means that you have to choose the right word or phrase to send the best message. As we've just discussed before, learn how to say no in a positive manner, and we went through those several conversation techniques and phrases with you in our previous sessions. You can have an end result where the caller will understand and accept your information much more quickly if you don't use very negative phrasing. So that is something you do need to proceed with cautiously, the way you say no. Dealing with difficult callers, there also are several guidelines that you just simply need to follow. And if you follow these, then really things will work out quite smoothly. You just need to take a deep breath and handle the situation with the training that you've got. Listen without interrupting, very first important step. Gather the facts and make a note of them. And take their details so you can get back to them at any time. Do make sure that you sympathize with them and offer ways to act fast or as fast as you can. Apologize, of course, if you have made the mistake. This goes without saying. And always stay calm, even though the caller is angry, and it could be that they are abusive as well or insulting. Do stay calm. Really, if you follow these basic guidelines, they will help you. Of course, it's not going to be easy, and the more you practice these techniques and follow these things, the better you will be. But definitely try at least one at a time. If you can't do all of these things at once, then at least know that you do need to listen first without interrupting. If you do that, then at least you're starting off on the right foot. And the others will come naturally to you as you go through this regimen of handling a difficult caller. Staying calm is perhaps the most important thing that's going to help you through it. Because if you stay calm, you can think. If you don't stay calm, then your mind explodes and tempers flare and your emotions run away with you. So do try to remember to stay calm at all costs. When on the phone, the choice of words is very, very important. I do remember saying that a lot of the impact of your message comes through body language and tone of voice on the telephone. However, the words, even though that is of less impact than your actual tone of voice, the words still are important. So you don't speak crudely. Crudely meaning rudely. You do always give polite expressions and very good English and well-intended English words, regardless of the language that you are speaking, by the way. But here we are talking about English. With your choice of words, reply with a distinct yes, rather than yeah. Yeah is too casual, and it is not professional, so delete it from your vocabulary if you want to sound professional. The next thing you can do is show respect with simple comments and responses. And here, your words really do mean a lot. Thank you. I appreciate your help. And please. These are three very simple words and comments that really do mean a lot to a caller. And also, when you say them with the right tone of voice as well. Quite often we forget to say these words. Thank you, please, I appreciate your help. We forget those things. So do try to use those choice of words. Next up, avoid responding with non-word noises. These mean or or This kind of usage of non-word noises on the telephone really is lacking professionalism. And it really says to the caller or the person on the other end of the line that perhaps you are not listening intently, or it's a little bit disrespectful in some ways as well. Try to use words instead of non-word noises. For example, for you could use I see. That's an alternative rather than saying So do bear in mind that there are alternatives to these noises. And of course, speak slowly and pronounce words clearly. We did talk about pronunciation and enunciation and the pace of your voice. So do remember these points, match them with your choice of words, and you'll find that you'll come across very, very well on the telephone. Sometimes callers get mad. They get quite angry. But these are 16 words and phrases that keep callers calm. And you might like to use them from time to time or slot them in where you feel that they are appropriate. Let's take a look at them, and we'll go down the left column and then we'll go down the right column. Hello. That keeps people calm in the right situation, of course. It's much better than hi, but hello, said sincerely, is really a good word to use in the right situation, of course. Don't forget that. Good morning, also, and please. Thank you. These are excellent words to use. I'm very sorry. These do keep callers calm as well, or excuse me. Excuse me if I take a bit of time to do this. Excuse me. Also, you can say you're welcome. When somebody says thank you to you, you can say you're welcome. That's very, very polite, and it's really a calmer for the caller. May I help you, of course, is very perfect in terms of its offering help. Not can I help you, remember, as we explained in the opening part of our telephone etiquette program. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. Another very good phrase to be able to use, or thank you for waiting as well. You could also say it was nice talking to you. If you do get along well with the caller or the customer, you can also say this if you are confident in being able to say it in a very good way, and you want to improve your relations. Is there anything else I can do for you? Another nice way of saying, how may I help you, or is there anything else? Is there anything else I can do for you? Other words that keep people very calm are thank you for coming, or thank you for calling. It's been a pleasure to serve you. Some people like this, some people don't. It's up to you. It's been a pleasure to assist you. You could use that as well. So don't forget, there are alternatives to this that you can play around with. Another very nice one is if you want to help somebody, you could say, I'd be happy to do that for you. If someone says, can you help me with this? You could say, yes, I'd be happy to do that for you. So do bear in mind the way you speak, and some of these phrases will keep that caller calm. And another thing you can say is, we appreciate your business. We appreciate your custom. these are other soft ways that keep that caller or that customer, very, very calm. So put them in your toolkit. Don't forget to use them. Learn the English language. As we're going through this, and English is the language that we're working with, learn to use it. Pick up on all those polite and very well accepted phrases. We talked about lots of conversation techniques and phrases you can use, how to break down barriers in communication with certain words. So here are 16 words and phrases that also keep callers calm. Sometimes on the telephone, you may not be sure that you've been understood. So in that case, you do need to check through the way you present yourself. You do need to make sure that you speak distinctly, meaning that you are clear, very, very clear to the listener, and you speak at a moderate pace. Also, don't forget, volume is important as well. So think about your volume. Is it loud or is it soft that people can't hear? Or is it moderate and people can understand quite clearly? The other thing you need to be sure of is stay with your caller. Don't give important information when the caller doesn't appear to be listening. So when I say stay with your caller, always be or recognize that the caller is with you in that part of the conversation and that they haven't wandered off or their mind hasn't wandered off on another subject. Also, with your language, use everyday language. Use simple, everyday English. And indeed, if you need to use terms that callers may not understand, go ahead and explain that. There are parts of this program where you may not understand the first time I mention something, and then I go ahead and explain what that word or phrase may mean. So, try to remember you can do this if you feel the caller doesn't understand. In order to make sure you're understood, you might also have to repeat or spell out certain things if it is a bit difficult for the caller. So don't repeat and be rude about it. Be careful when you do this. You could say to them, may I repeat that so you can be sure of the information? Da-da-da-da-da-da. So polite usage of may I. May I spell that for you so that it is clear? Use the word may when you ask permission to repeat or spell out or give additional information. And always when you're not sure you've been understood, you can ask for feedback. You could say, Mr. Smith, could you tell me, is that clear or do you need more information on that? Ask for feedback. Don't be afraid to do that. And always encourage questions. You could say to the person on the other end, is there any question you need to ask before I place that order for you? Is there any other information you need? Always encourage questions. This way, you can be definite that you have been understood and that you have been very professional in the way you've handled that particular conversation on the telephone. So what happens when you make a mistake? What to do when you make a mistake? You will make mistakes. You will have blunders, or you will have times where you have said the wrong thing. So what do you do to make sure you are a winner in handling the telephone conversation? First up, make things right. Don't let it continue. Your first responsibility is to correct the mistake. Don't ignore it and let it get bigger and bigger and bigger. That is definitely going to get you into hot water or into trouble. Next up, apologize. When you've made a mistake and you know it, then apologize for it. You will usually gain stature or you will gain respect by apologizing in a direct way. Just straight up Direct meaning not strongly or harshly, but immediately. So do apologize. What do you do when you make a mistake? And you apologize, then let the matter rest. Don't go on and offer more and more apologies. One apology is sufficient. One apology is enough. What do you do when you make a mistake? You learn more about the operations so you don't make that mistake again. Keep up to speed, or always do your homework and research and find out more information about certain things so you don't make that mistake again. That is important. You can also ask if you can do something else in our next point. After resolving your mistake, after fixing it up, ask if you can help in any other way. And then that will satisfy the customer or satisfy the caller, and they will feel better about you having made the first mistake. So you're going to help them with something else. The other thing in the next point is you should let others know that you've learned something. Let the caller know that having made that mistake, you have actually learned something and that it won't happen again. Do keep records of this as well. Make sure also that people around you know of that mistake so they won't make the same mistake to a caller. When you keep a record of errors made, in our last point here, keep a record of the causes and their solutions as well. Not just the mistake, also keep a record of the solutions that you found and how you handled it. If you review this list from time to time, mistakes can be prevented in the future. And this is an important part of keeping up the quality of your job as well. Always improving the system, always finding ways how callers and customers can be satisfied in a better way. So that's what you do. All of these things will help you to know what to do when you make a mistake. Sometimes you might also call the wrong number. Does this ever happen? Yes, it does. And so how do you handle that particular situation? It may not happen often, but sometimes it will happen. So if you place a call and it reaches what appears to be the wrong number, you can usually tell because the voice is not the right voice that you're hearing, or the name is not what you are meant to hear. Immediately check the telephone number. You can say, I beg your pardon, but is this 305-375-0000? If it is evident that some error was made, then express regret, even if you were not responsible. You would say, oh, I am sorry, it's a wrong number. Thank you. You can say something very simple like that. Don't just hang up. Hanging up is very rude. It could be in the future you may need to speak to that person. So if it's somebody in the same department perhaps and it's the wrong number, you could say, oh, I beg your pardon, is that extension 543? If it's not, then you can say, oh, I'm sorry, I have the wrong extension. I'll call back. Thank you so much. Goodbye. So there you go. Always be polite, even when you're calling the wrong number. That way, you are showing your professionalism. And you do need to show this in every engagement, every encounter you have on the telephone. Remember, this helps you practice your habits. So in your personal life, in your professional life, you are always practicing habits. Habits that make you better when it comes to telephone communication as well. If someone calls you by mistake, and this will happen, we often get wrong numbers and we're on the other end. So instead of saying, oh, you've got the wrong number, clunk and hang up, because you might be irritated by that, instead of doing that, tell the caller politely that she's reached the wrong number. You can then suggest that they recheck it and dial again. And if the caller is trying to reach another employee or another department, do your best to try to find the number and help them transfer that call. These are just some simple things that you can do that make you look professional. For example, if a number comes in and it is a mistake, you can say to them simply, "Oh, I'm sorry, I do think you have a wrong number. Maybe you should check it again." And they will respond and you will say, "Goodbye," or depending on what the conversation is. Always be polite. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't cost you money to be polite. You don't have to have a university degree to be polite. So do think of these things. You become a much better person because of them. Now I'd like to take you through, in the final parts of this particular session, the 11 most frequent caller complaints. Let's just look at them one by one. And in going through these, I think they will be able to sum up for you the things that you need to remember to do when you're looking at how you work with the telephone. Let's take a look at number 1. The first complaint by callers is that the telephone rings for a long time before it's answered. So therefore, as we have gone through this, try to answer calls within 3 rings. Next up, the second most frequent complaint. They place me on hold for sometimes it seems hours. So if you find you're placing many calls on hold, write down the name of the caller and a brief description of what they are calling about. Of course, there are things you can do to prevent this, and then you get back to them. You go through the steps we went through to handle putting people on hold. The third most frequent complaint. The line is busy for hours, it seems. So try to keep calls short. Sometimes people try to ring in and the line is never free. So you do try to have to think of this or look at your system and see if there's anything wrong with it. Number 4. They are very rude and get offensive when asked their full name, or sometimes just won't give it. Sometimes a caller gets so angry they want to ask what your name is. And in this particular instance, depending on your company policy, you really should give your name, if that is your company policy. But at all times, try to stay pleasant. Don't get defensive. Sometimes, depending on the nature of the caller has the right to ask your name. And point number 5, the 5th most frequent caller complaint. They let me talk on and only to realize that they're not the person I should be talking to. So in this case, really don't let things go on with a caller. Try to interrupt them if you are unable to help them, and put them through to somebody who really can. We went through that in the main part of our program earlier on. Complaint number 6. If I call the wrong department for help, they don't give me suggestions to where I should be calling. They just say, "Oh, I don't know, not our department." Now, this is very true. You do get this response sometimes, and it is unfortunate. So you have to be careful about that. And frequently you'll find that your number may be similar to another department, and that perhaps is why you're getting a lot of calls. So rather than hanging up on the caller or saying you don't know, try to be helpful. This is really very, very important. You do need to try to make sure that that person does get to the right department. Even though you're not responsible for that caller, in certain ways you are responsible to make sure they get to the right place. Complaint number 7. They don't clearly listen to my needs before they transfer me to the wrong person. Here again, how do you fight that? How do you rectify that? You listen carefully all the time. Complaint number 8. Sometimes they disconnect me while transferring my call. So here comes your technique of transferring calls. Disconnections do happen, so in order to avoid that, put into practice the techniques of transferring calls. hopefully those complaints, and they have been researched, and they are valid complaints that we certainly do know about, hopefully they have helped you in trying to imprint in your mind or focus in your mind how you need to handle your callers so you don't get those complaints coming into your department or into your company. Next up, we are going to take a look here at how to battle burnout. And really, burnout happens if you are on the phone a lot, if you find that you spend a long shift working on the telephone and you've had difficult cases. So you'll find that you're getting tired and exhausted and you really just want to take a real long break. So when burnout is approaching, or we want to try to prevent it from happening, there are some survival tips you can follow. Never take your work personally. This is really a very good thing to look at. When callers complain, try to remember they're not complaining about you personally. They've never really met you. They're complaining about the problem. They're complaining about a situation. They're not complaining about you. So just think about it in that light, and that will help you survive. Next up, don't take your problems home. Leave them at work. At work, when you're on duty, then that's where your problems are handled. And leave them there. When you go home at night, you don't go home with your work or your problems. Following that will help you really survive a hectic day and a hectic job. Next up, point number 3. You can find ways to reduce stress. If you find ways to reduce stress, then you can lessen your emotional outlook on things. You can really handle your job better, and of course, you can then continue and be very professional in your job. And point number 4. Here, you can get help from others. Don't forget, you don't have to always be alone in trying to find out how to work something out. Don't be isolated. Always refer to your colleagues. Go to see your boss. Talk to people. Ask for assistance. And point number 5, remember the good news. Even though you may have callers who have problems, you do have callers who are very, very nice on the phone. They usually call, however, with problems. But don't let that give you a warped perspective of the world. Don't think for 1 minute that everybody is like that. As I said, there are times when you have good callers, and they're the ones too that you do indeed need to remember. Remember the good news. So if you want to have some fun in your day, in your hectic work day, working there in your call center or working on the reception desk or in your customer service center, take some time out. Breathe. Breathe very well. Several times during the day, stop and pause for 3 slow, deep, relaxing breaths. You do need to take care of yourself. Next up, keep some stress relievers on hand. Keep some cool hand towels, perhaps in the fridge, and wipe your face with a cool hand towel. Put it around your neck, and perhaps take your shoes off and wiggle your toes and relax your feet. Do some small calming exercises. These things can help you out. Also, celebrate small victories. If you feel that you did something well, and even though it may have only been something quite small, then celebrate that. Give yourself a pat on the back. Go and have a nice lunch. Enjoy the fact that you did something really, really well. And finally, review your successes at the end of the day. Think about what you did well. Of course, you may have made some mistakes. We do. We all do things wrong in our day. But we also do things that are very good, and we do things well. So think about what you did well. That is important. At at the end of the day, take a few moments to reflect on what you have accomplished. And as I just mentioned a moment ago, tally up the good experiences against the bad. Of course, there were angry callers, and there are always angry callers. And some of those you can never really please. They are just the way they are. But remember this point. Because you are a professional, it's natural to remember and to be concerned about the negative callers that you experience. That is because you are a professional person. But you do have to, however, give yourself a chance and pat yourself on the back. Say to yourself, job well done. When you do this, you boost your confidence. You build your image about yourself. Because you are handling things in a professional way. You are good at what you do. And you can be better, of course. And if you want to improve yourself and be excellent at what you do, then you do need to encourage yourself along the way. Remember also that your attitude in the approach to how you handle your work on the telephone really does have power. So I'd like to read this to you as we close up this particular part of our program. Our lives are not determined by what happens to us, but how we react to what happens. Not by what life brings to us, but by the attitude we bring to life. A positive attitude causes a chain reaction of positive thoughts, positive events, and positive outcomes. So our attitude is a catalyst. It is a spark that creates extraordinary results. So in closing up this session, I want you to think about that point. When you go to work with a positive attitude, when you approach your job with a positive attitude, then the chance is, the more likely thing that will happen is that you will have positive and extraordinary results. Something to remember as well. A person may forget what you say, a person may forget what you do, but a person will not forget how you made them feel. I do want to say thank you very much for your attention in this program. The parts that we have gone through together really have contained information that are going to help you along the way to being extraordinary, to being exceptional in the way you handle people on the telephone. I do want to say thank you very much once again for your attention. And I want to ask you to start applying these techniques right now. The sooner you do, you can become very, very professional at your job, and you can really begin to make a mark in the line of work that you have when you're dealing with people on the telephone. Thank you and goodbye.